Hello everybody. So today let me cover one of the most requested stocks in a comment section ever in the history of the channel. I am talking about the Smarter Web company. So I'm going to try to go fast, although this is my first time analyzing this company. So keep in mind, the more you analyze a stock, the more you understand it. This is a preliminary analysis. And I'm doing this on an auspicious day, right? Because they now hold 1,000 Bitcoin. It's what they've announced. And they've acquired that 1,000 Bitcoin after having been successful at their wave of the UK version of an ATM. And I won't delve too much into this, but it essentially works like an American ATM, and they are able to collect the premium. This is a company that has no debt. This company is not in a debt phase. This company is in a premium to NAV phase. They are acquiring the premium. They are selling dollar bills for, in their case, $6 roughly, or £1 bills into £6 bills. Anyways, I don't think there's such a thing as a £1 bill. Doesn't matter. The point is, we're trading at a price to mNAV of a 6. Which is very good, because when you trade out of this price to mNAV, you're able to collect that premium. You're able to generate that dollar yield, and then they turn around and they buy the Bitcoin. Now, this company is doing it in a more timed way when they acquire the Bitcoin. They have a tendency to keep a little cash on the balance sheet and expand the buys and time the buys over multiple weeks. So at least that is my understanding of the chart. They have a frequency in how they buy their Bitcoin. They have their own method to the madness. For this analysis, I'm going to assume that, of course, the cash on the balance sheet will be eventually turned into Bitcoin, and probably rather quickly. And of course, if you look at Nick's website right here, kudos, credit where credit is due, the Smarter Investment guy right there, kudos, very, very good website to understand this company. In this website, right, SWC Bitcoin, in this website, right, he assumes the cash is going to buy the Bitcoin, and I assume the same thing. The cash is going to buy the Bitcoin, but is it going to be over a 3-week period, over a 5-week period, over a 2-week period? I don't know. I have no idea. And we have all of the data we need. What's the last data we need? We need the market cap, and the market cap is going to be in pounds, and it's 751 million pounds is the market cap of this company. So this company has had explosive growth. And one of the big questions is that justified? Is that going to continue? And, do they have this ability to keep executing like they have? Because even though this is a new company, they have started very, very strong after 70 days. So again, this is from Bitcoin B21. So again, kudos to him for doing this chart. This shows you the speed at which the Smarter Web company has been able to accumulate Bitcoin. And they've been able to do that much faster than even MetaPlanet. And MetaPlanet is one of these companies that I love, as you know, on the channel. Well, keep in mind, I'm a big believer that there is no second best. MicroStrategy is always going to be number one in my heart. There is no second best. But, as I try to diversify, because MicroStrategy keeps doing well, as I try to diversify, I'm trying to look for, the second, the third best, or the MicroStrategy of XYZ country. And that's going to be kind of my take on the Smarter Web companies, that it is the MicroStrategy of the United Kingdom, or the MetaPlanet of the United Kingdom, if you want to talk about a sense of scale. Because the Smarter Web company, realistically, it could catch up to MetaPlanet, I think, realistically. Catching up to MicroStrategy, I don't think anybody's going to catch up to MicroStrategy. But of course, this is a community. This is a team. I don't actually think Bitcoin treasury companies compete head to head. I think they cooperate in many ways. I think they give each other tips. It's all the same team. It's Team Bitcoin, because when you buy the Bitcoin, you help everybody in the network who owns the Bitcoin. So, anyways, the trajectory is very important. When you draw out the trajectory, no company has had such a strong trajectory on the way up, has been able to accumulate Bitcoin at such a speed that doesn't exist, at least from what I've seen. Their days to cover is something like a 30-day. I'm going to do a slightly different analysis, but one of the big bets behind the Smarter Web company is, are they going to be able to continue that pace of acquisition? Of course, the answer to that over the medium term is no, because the law of large numbers is going to kick in. But are they going to be able to acquire still faster than MetaPlanet, for example, has been able to acquire? Are they going to keep a momentum even faster than MetaPlanet? And I think this could be a yes. So instead of using kind of, there's all sorts of ways to calculate it, all sorts of metrics. So I'm doing what I'm comfortable with today, which is a back of the napkin math. And I should warn you, this is extremely conservative. This is too conservative, because the number I'm using their data from their recent ATM equivalent, and I'm using that data in what I think was mostly their trial phase, right? The 7 million new ordinary shares that they've placed between June 19 and, June 19 and July 4. There you go, June 19 and July 4. To me, that was a trial run, right? It seems to me like it was a trial run, because they're going to do 14 million. And I don't know how long it's going to take them to do 14 million. But if it takes them the same amount of time to do 14 million, you can take my numbers and double them, right? So I'm using the trial period, and I'm expanding the trial period over 1 year to kind of see what kind of upside we could be looking at over a 12-year period. So the market cap of the company is 751 million pounds. How much Bitcoin do they have? Well, they have 1,000 Bitcoin, a Bitcoin in pound. I'm not used to seeing Bitcoin quoted in pounds, but a Bitcoin in pound is 79,800 pounds. So that's, let's call it 80 million. Let's call it 80 million pounds worth of Bitcoin, 42 million pounds worth of cash, which will be turned into Bitcoin. I don't know when, but I'm assuming for the sake of analysis that it's already into Bitcoin. So what do you get, right? You get your market cap, 751 million. Keep in mind, this is all market cap. There's no debt. So for them, market cap, price to NAV and enterprise value to NAV for them is the same thing. So you divide that by, of course, the Bitcoin they already own, 80 million of Bitcoin they already own, and then the cash that's going to be turned into Bitcoin. And so I get a mNAV of 6.15. So I calculated pretty much the same as Nick calculates on his website, because he states the mNAV is something like a 6.17. So we get to roughly the same number. So very accretive, higher than MetaPlanet, right? MetaPlanet is a 4. Also, I want to point out that right now, of course, those mNAVs have been compressing. They haven't been as good as they were 2 to 3 weeks ago. So this may be even a bearish take for the mNAV. Maybe the natural mNAV for Smarter Web is closer to a 9 or a 10. Maybe not a 20. It went past a 20. That's a little high, but maybe it's a little higher than that. So using all this data and using this mNAV, they were able to raise 22.9 million British pounds in 23 days. Now, taking a very pessimistic outlook, I'm using that 6x mNAV, knowing full well that they raised at higher prices at some point, right? But I'm trying to be extremely conservative. How much dilution does that mean? That means that we sold $1 for $6. A pound for 6 pounds is what we sold. So extrapolating that, I take the 22.9 million, that's the proceeds, minus the dilution, minus what we have to give away, right? Those dollar bills we had to give away. So that's 3.72 million pounds. So the dollar gain was 19 million. That was the dollar gain, 19 million pounds over 23 days. So per day, and I'm using calendar days because that's for the sake of simplicity. This is back of a napkin. Calendar day here is 830,000 pounds per day. Over 1 year, that's roughly 300 million pounds. So assuming they're able to run this ATM And keep in mind that's the trial phase of the ATM, but assuming they're able to keep this up consistently and assuming the mNAV stays at a 6 and assuming they do this for 1 year, what do I get? NAV in a year. I get an NAV of 422 million. The market cap currently is 751 million. So if you assume that the mNAV moves back up to a 7 and you assume the mNAV is a 7 1 year from now, then that would mean the market cap would be 2.95 billion. That's roughly a 4x. Assuming 1 year from now the mNAV is still a 7x, and assuming that trial period of ATM is what they're going to do year round, you're looking at a 4x. And then you start assuming compression. So if you do a 5x, if you do a 5x mNAV, you're looking at a 3x. If you do a 3x mNAV, you're looking at roughly a 2x. And then, of course, the risk is the mNAV getting very, very close to a 1. Then, in that case, you would be looking at maybe not breaking even in a year. But the big question is, do you really believe a fast horse like this, can a fast horse like this trade below 1? Well, the answer to that is it could, but it would be a very big bear market. It would be a 2022 style bear market. At least that is my take. It would be a bear market if that were to happen. And keep in mind, even if you were to think, oh, it's going to trade at a 1 or a 1.1 or something like that, well, add 6 months of ATM. Add a little bit of ATM and then you will catch up. It's the idea of the spring coiling up. If the valuation doesn't move while the Bitcoin on the balance sheet keeps growing at this rate, at some point you're applying pressure to that spring. That spring is getting coiled and it pops at some point. And that's the nature of investing. We have no idea when it's going to pop. But why is this conservative? Like I said, this is conservative because it seems like the tranche they are going through right now is 14 million. So are they going to move from issuing 7 million shares to now they're going to issue 14 million shares in 23 days? Well, if they do that, you can go ahead and you can 2x my numbers on this slide. And so all of a sudden, a 7x mNAV in 1 year would be closer to an 8 times your money and not a 4 times your money. And that's assuming they can keep double the pace of the ATM. My quick video about it when I was covering MicroStrategy on Sunday. I called them relentless in their buys, and they have been relentless in their buys. You can go on the website of the Smarter Web company and look at how quickly they've bought the Bitcoin. They've bought a lot of Bitcoin. They are not shy about buying the Bitcoin. They're not trying to be cute. They're not trying to optimize and wait for the price to NAV to be the most favorable to issue. And unfortunately, there's a few companies that I follow, Bitcoin treasury companies that I follow, who are probably waiting for their price to NAV to spike before they issue new shares. And of course, I am a big believer in the value of dilution to capture mNAV in this type of business and in this type of company. So anyways, the mNAV now is kind of down, in my view. What's the fair mNAV? Probably a little higher than that if they can keep up this space of accumulation. Probably a little higher than that. And this is more or less what I have to say from a quantitative component. Now, there's a qualitative component to this story. They are exhibiting features very similar to what MetaPlanet was exhibiting in Japan. You may know MetaPlanet was the best performing stock of 2024 out of all of the stock market. Well, you start seeing things like that. Best performing UK IPO ever. Largest stock on Aquis, which is one of the exchanges. Most liquid stock in the OTC QB. That's another type of OTC. Anyways, in the US, they're most liquid over there. They just launched in Germany. So I'm curious as to why they did that. I mean, clearly they want to be on Euro rails. They want to be on USD rails. This is pretty good. You still don't get the reflexivity that you would get, say, in a MetaPlanet, and I don't really mean reflexivity, but you still don't get that feedback loop between Japan, Europe, and the US. MetaPlanet trades, almost 24/7 because it's traded in Japan. Of course, we are not going to list in Japan, as Saylor says. Listing in Japan is something a little too hard for another Japan company, but kudos to them for doing it in Europe. So so getting exposure to Europe, getting exposure to the UK. And again, we have the largest UK public company holding Bitcoin, and that's the largest by a wide margin compared to Coincilium, compared to what I can say. And so they've had a start that is perhaps even better than the start of MetaPlanet. And I will conclude with this, and it is Smarter Web actually more popular than MetaPlanet among retail? And of course, when a company is so small, I think retail plays a role in that price to NAV, in keeping that price to NAV pretty high. For example, I would not say that for MicroStrategy retail plays a role. I would say for MicroStrategy, well, it's mostly institutions now that bid up the price to NAV. For a small stock like the Smarter Web, I think retail plays a major role. And I want to point out, right? So Adam Livingston, absolutely stunning videos. Great YouTuber. Go look. MetaPlanet. He's covered MetaPlanet multiple times. Look at the number of views of the MetaPlanet videos. I found that very striking. None of his MetaPlanet videos, which are excellent, none of these MetaPlanet videos beat his Smarter Web Company video. His Smarter Web Company video at 13,000 views a video got more view than any of his MetaPlanet videos. So that might be a little giveaway that there's something going on with the Smarter Web. I also want to show the trends of Smarter Web on Google. Now, of course, this is all relative. It's a marketer's tool. May not work for this. The point is, in the United Kingdom, if you look consistently in the United Kingdom, the Smarter Web Company has been very, very close to MicroStrategy, and it has been a few times actually above MicroStrategy in popularity in the United Kingdom. And if you look compared to MetaPlanet, the Smarter Web Company has been more popular on Google compared to MetaPlanet throughout its history in the United Kingdom. So I think this is a stock that is catching the attention of the UK retail investor, which is very good because you may remember my AltBG video, and I was saying, oh, well, it would be a very good idea for the CEO of AltBG to start talking up AltBG in France, because they don't even seem to have a very big, French retail investor following over there. Well, maybe the UK has an investor mindset that is very similar to that of the United States. If you actually look at my channel, these are my channel metrics. Did you know this? My channel metrics. 8.3% of my viewers are from the United Kingdom. So that's very interesting right there. So there's a lot of capital. There's a lot of retail capital in the UK that flows into Smarter Web, most likely. This is very similar to Japan, who also has a big retail cohort. Now, obviously, Japan would not show up on an English-speaking channel, but the UK will. The UK will. So I think they are gaining a lot of traction with the UK investor, and so that is for the benefit of the persons who own the Smarter Web Company in the US or in Germany. I will conclude with this presentation, and this is mainstream UK media. I don't know if this goes on the radio or not. This sounds very much like a radio clip. Very, very interesting take here, talking about how in the UK you have a very hard time buying Bitcoin. The banks oftentimes frown on it. They don't like it. They don't allow it. You have to go through a debit card or a credit card and pay fees in order to be able to buy Bitcoin. You're limited in amount. The Bitcoin ETF in the UK is not really a thing. And they specifically talk about Coincilium and talk about the Smarter Web Company. And I was very pleasantly surprised to see Bloomberg's take on British treasury companies, Bitcoin treasury companies. It was actually a fairly positive one. And the interviewee they got on there had, in my view, a really good take on bubbles and dismissing a lot of the FUD that you find for these companies on Bloomberg UK. Go believe it or not. So if you are interested in hearing a UK take, with a British accent, you could go listen to that. I recommend that. You could go listen to Adam Livingston. He's great. I recommend his channel. You also could go check out the website of Nick, which is a great website and really shows you this. Kudos to you, Nick, for making this website. And you could also go on the Smarter Web Company and just look at their dashboard. They have a nice dashboard and they did a good job as well. So I'm fairly bullish on this company. I don't own it. You will know if I decide to own it or not on the Patreon. I'll let my Patreon members know that. But this is one I'm following closely. We'll have to see what happens to price to NAV in the short term. It could get cheaper in the short term. I kind of hope so. Maybe this is what I need to get in, right? If the price to NAV drops to a 5 or a 4, you will find that BTT is very, very interested in this one. So anyways, this was not financial advice, not investment advice. This is only entertainment. I'm hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful, wonderful day.